this one church town, there's a gold dirt road to a whole lot of nothing. Got a deed to the land, but it ain't my ground. This is God's country. We pray for rain and thank him when it's falling, 'cause it brings a grain and a little bit of money. We put it back in a plate, I guess that's why they call it God's country. I saw the light in a sunrise, sitting back in a 40 on the muddy riverside, getting baptized in holy water and shine with the dogs running. Saved by the sound of a pin-found Dixie whistle in the wind, that'll get you heaven bound. The devil went down to Georgia, but he didn't stick around. This is God's country. We turn the dirt and work until the week's done. We take a break and break bread on Sunday, then do it all again, 'cause we're proud to be from God's country. I saw the light in a sunrise, sitting back in a 40 on the muddy riverside, getting baptized in holy water and shine with the dogs running. Saved by the sound of a pin-found Dixie whistle in the wind, that'll get you heaven bound. The devil went down to Georgia, but he didn't stick around. This is God's country. God's country. I don't care what my headstone reads or what kind of pine wood box I end up in. When it's my time, lay me 6 feet deep in God's country. I saw the light in a sunrise, sitting back in a 40 on the muddy riverside, getting baptized in holy water and shine with the dogs running. Saved by the sound of a pin-found Dixie whistle in the wind, that'll get you heaven bound. The devil went down to Georgia, but he didn't stick around. This is God's country. Yeah, I saw the light in a sunrise, sitting back in a 40 on the muddy riverside, getting baptized in holy water and shine with the dogs running. Saved by the sound of a pin-found Dixie whistle in the wind, that'll get you heaven bound. The devil went down to Georgia, but he didn't stick around. This is God's country.
Hey, Sergeant Major, talking about a song that fires you up, huh?
Yeah, I was like, it was a good song.
Oh my God, this is one of those songs, God's Country, the United States of America. Beautiful, beautiful song. Sergeant Major, before we get started, we always give a warm welcome to everybody that's with us. And right now, Bobby's going to introduce you. But let's start off with Ceci Escano, nuestra hermana, our sisters, puro pa adelante, ready to go forward. Watching us she's been one of our loyal listeners since we started a year and a half ago. And we have over 150 episodes. Watching us all the way from Riverside. Ceci, you're always by our side, hermana. Mil gracias. And we got Jim DeJanis, Semper Fi. Jim DeJanis, Sergeant Major. He's a retired correctional officer, prison guard from Pelican Bay State Prison. He did, I believe, over 17 years there. They call him Batman because all the inmates, they all feared him, respected him, and at the above and beyond, this guy was a narc cop in the prison. The guy is a legend in the California Department of Corrections, and you could see Semper Fi, great man. And we got Chris Kilby, 1097 Sweetwater High. I believe he went to Sweetwater High School.
I did.
You know Chris Kilby?
It doesn't sound familiar. What year? Do you know what year he was? I'm class of '84.
You know what? He'll come on right now. Let us know. But Chris Kilby, let me tell you, he's a retired San Diego Police Department detective. He is a legend when it comes to gangs. He was a gang investigator, and he was also a robbery investigator. He was that guy, a sergeant major, that when we had a case that nobody else could solve, and that case that the district attorney wasn't going to pick up, the chief would say, "Get Chris on it." and Chris would literally resuscitate these gang cases and, I mean, build strong federal and state cases. That's Chris Kilby. And with that, we got Gordo Gordito. He's watching us live right now from Chicago. Friday will be his last day. He served as a police officer with the city of Chicago PD. After 25 years of service, he's retiring this Friday. Gordo Gordito, mil gracias for your service, brother. Thank you for everything you've done, brother.
Wow, you have some great followers, it sounds like.
Oh, we got some great ones, and we got Throwback Boxing. What's up, Johnny? This is Pancho. We were in the same Little League team, Bannister Steel. I'm Robert Guzman's brother.
Yeah, I know Pancho. I know Robert. I know both of them. Yeah,
and
we play ball together.
Yes, and Robert Guzman now is a pastor, pastor and dynamic preacher for I believe the Apostolic Church in Phoenix, Arizona. Bobby, you're gonna have to go visit him one of these days. This guy, I mean, he's a Reverend Shamrock. This guy is a great preacher, and he's right there where you're at, Bobby. Please, I'll send you his address. Go visit him. Chris Kilby went to Bonita, arch rivals, but much respect. And we got Fidel Santillan, who did over 25 years with the ICE. He was one of the I guess agents that tracked fugitives nationwide. And thank you for your service, Fidel. Did 25 years with him, retired now, and a world traveler, and he's going to be on with us in the next couple of weeks. And Semper Fi, Semper Fi, hola hermanos, another brother.
Awesome.
So yeah, we got a lot of I guess not retired, but former Marines. Once a Marine, always a Marine. Right?
Marines just at a different. We're all Marines, just at a different stage in our life. We may not be in uniform anymore, but we're still Marines.
Exactly. With that said, Bobby, let's start off with you. I know you're going to introduce a Sergeant Major, but let's start off. What are you drinking and what are you smoking tonight, Bobby? First of all, are you? Did you fall off the wagon yet, or are you still on trying to lose weight? And
still dropping weight, and I'm drinking black coffee with my Operation Iraqi Freedom. I did 2 years there as a contractor. I was in Mosul. So I'm drinking coffee from there and smoking a cigar. It's a limited edition, 5-0. 5-0 is for the 50th birthday of the owner of Fine Ash, and they did a small batch, and being a member, I got one. It's a really good smoke. So that's what I'm smoking right now.
That's awesome, Bobby. So you've been off. You haven't had a drink in 30 days. How many pounds did you lose? Or how many did you gain? I mean,
no, I've dropped about 24 pounds.
Really?
And, no, but I haven't drank since probably almost 2 months.
Wow, Bobby, that is great. So 24 pounds, huh?
Yeah, 24 pounds.
Well, if I were you, I'd continue and let's get some 40s.
I think I'm going to try that.
All right, brother. Hey, well, listen, I'm drinking like Benny always laughs because I'm a big Costco. I should have bought stock in Costco. I was drinking a small batch. It's called 1792, and it's a straight bourbon out of Kentucky. Great drink. And with that said, let's get started. Bobby, it's all yours, brother.
Well, first of all, really excited about today's episode. I've talked to Sergeant Major Juan Hidalgo Jr. I've talked to him offline before, and I have a special place in my heart for the Marine Corps. My son was a 9/11 Marine, so my God, we went through a lot with him when he was doing his deployments. So I want to introduce Sergeant Major Juan M. Hidalgo. Here we go. Sergeant Major Juan M. Hidalgo Jr. was born and raised in San Diego, California. He enlisted in the Marine Corps on 3rd of April, 1984, and arrived at the Marine Corps Recruit Depot at MCRD San Diego for training. After training, he was meritoriously promoted to private first class, and from there went on to during his career, I'm going to condense it because there's so many assignments he did. Here's this kid from San Diego, from down there just south of San Diego.
National City.
I was going to say Chula Vista because that's where
National City.
No, National City. But he went to Fort Knox, Kentucky for the basic tank crewman course. So he was a tankman. So from there, he later went back to MCRD, did some recruiter's assistance, or recruiter's aide, and then back to Camp Pendleton. So Sergeant Major did 31 years, a little bit more than 31 years in the Marine Corps, which included 10 deployments. 10 deployments with, and I think if I saw that, at least 2 of them, maybe more with the 11th MEU, and also 4 combat deployments. And when I see something like this, when I was reading retired Sergeant Major's resume, what I see is not only a dedication, patriotism from a great man, but also I'll realize the dedication that his family and sacrifice his family had to make, because that's a lot of time that I'm sure you're out on deployments and combat deployments at that, especially during wartime. I'm going to skip down a little bit more. He did his first deployment during Iraqi Freedom, Operation Iraqi Freedom, in September, from December 2002 to January 2003. And during our interview, I want to touch on some of the combat that he saw in the leadership that was displayed during that time, not only by him, but by his men. I'm gonna skip back down a little bit more. Another assignment he did was in Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. He was there, did some time there. Said Camp Pendleton, 29 Palms, and back to the Marine Corps Recruit Depot assignment as a drill instructor. Sergeant Major Hidalgo holds a master's degree in organizational leadership with honors, a Bachelor of Science degree in criminal justice, summa cum laude, and an associate's degree in general studies. He is also a graduate of the National Defense University Keystone Executive Leader course, and also holds a first degree black belt from the Marine Corps Martial Arts Program. I want to just touch a little bit on some of his awards. He received the Defense Superior Service Medal, Meritorious Service Medal, 4th Award, Navy Marine Corps, Commendation Medal, again, 4th Award with Combat V. That means something for our patriots, for our soldiers and our Marines. Also, an Achievement Medal, an Army Medal, and Combat Action Ribbon. And I know how much a Combat Action Ribbon means. My son has received those too. So, Sergeant Major, I want to thank you. It's an honor to have you on our show, and David and I are very honored to have you here. And welcome.
Thank you so much, and the honor is mine. I'm glad to be here. Glad I can come and visit with you guys and your audience. What I heard was you guys have an awesome audience, and I'm glad you condensed that, because we got other things we can talk about except that boring long list of things.
Yes. Anyway, tell us a little bit about yourself, your upbringing.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I watched one of your interviews, was fascinated.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you. I'm pretty simple, I think. Regular upbringing. I grew up in National City, as we talked about a little while ago. I think that's one of the biggest things that I love to share now, is because a lot of young people are watching throughout my life and your life. And the fact is that they can look and say, if that guy made it out of the hood, I can make it out of there. Because a lot of my friends, I just had lunch with a good friend of mine who we both grew up in National City. We're both hung around the same people. He's a retired gunnery sergeant. And we looked at it and said, we made it out. Thank God. Only by the grace of God did we make it out. Obviously, we have to put some work in, but it's a great feeling to know, along the way, you're saying, okay, I got to do this. I have to do this in order to be successful. So I think it's not me per se, but it's in general, one young kid. If I can be an example to one young person growing up, especially young men, because a lot of our young men down there get in trouble, end up jail or don't survive. I think if anybody can be an example to one person at least, then it's worth it. So grew up in National City, like I said. My dad still lives in the same home, in our home that I grew up in. So I'm always down in the area. I stay very connected to the area that I grew up in. So that's Me, if you will, blue collar family. So very simple.
Sergeant Major, we just got a question right now from Chris Kilby, the San Diego PD gang detective legend. He says, do you know Sergeant Charles Chunks Padilla, another National City legend? Is that who you had lunch with today?
No, it wasn't Padilla. No, I don't know that name. Charles Padilla. I think he's older than me. If it's another Marine, I think he's a retired master gunnery sergeant, if that's the same guy, but he's older than me, so I don't know him well.
You know him? Okay, yeah, because he's another young man that's from National City, master gunnery sergeant. Yeah.
If that's him.
Go ahead, Bobby.
During the time that you were growing up, was a gang influence already present? What kind of problems did you have to deal with growing up down in the barrio?
Oh, absolutely. It's always been present. National City, it's been around for, you got generations, but it tends to influence. But and you saw in that interview that my team sent you, I attribute my getting out of that to having a father figure, my dad. My dad really set a great, he was a father. He laid down the rules, laid down the law, and that's what helped me think, because I was very hard-headed, like most Mexicanos, very hard-headed. I'm going to do it this way. And he had to tell me, no, you're not going to do that. You need to stay out of trouble. So I did. And I had some great mentors as well, some great teachers, some great professors that helped me along the way, that mentored me, that were all Marines, that mentored me to help me to make sure I wasn't going to go that way.
So, sir, at a young age, you knew you were going to be a Marine, like I knew I was going to be a police officer at a young age. Did you know at a young age that was going to be your career path?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I often share with people around age 8, I already knew I wanted to be a Marine. And that is due to the fact that I had a Vietnam, Korea, World War II veteran across the street from my home. And his name was Jack Wilkinson. And that man, just like if you remember the 70s, how when there was a project going on in the neighborhood, everybody kind of congregated there. Well, Jack would be telling World War II stories or Vietnam stories or Korea stories. And when you're a kid, my cousin and I, Joseph, who's also a Marine, and his parents still live in National City as well, in Lincoln Acres, we would hear those stories. That's what I want to do. I want to be a United States Marine. I want to serve my country in that capacity. And, right away, about 8, 9, 10, we would always go to the recruiter's office. Those people that might know National City used to be on 8th and Palm, right by the Lucky's supermarket. And we'd go and tell the recruiters, they had fun with us. Get the heck out of here, kid. Come back in a couple of years. And we did. I went back when I was 17. Joseph followed in about a year later. And we both became Marines, just a different timing.
Sir, we also have Manny Del Toro. Manny Del Toro, he's a captain with the San Diego Police Department.
Yeah.
And the guy's a legend with San Diego PD. Yeah. He says, you tell him, Johnny, great catcher on Colonial Ford, National City Pony League. You know Manny?
Yeah, Manny and I grew up together playing ball. Yeah, absolutely. We've known each other since National Junior High. So yeah, I know Manny for a lot. I was able to see him a couple of years ago, so it was good to see him. But yeah. Coming in the hood, we made it out. He's another great success story. He really is.
Oh yeah, he's a captain with San Diego PD. He's in charge of robbery, gangs. He's pretty high up there with San Diego PD. We're all very proud of him. Great man.
Yeah.
Manny Del Toro.
Well.
Sergeant Major, one of the things when I heard the interview you did, in my case, our listeners know my story. I was as high risk as they come. I lost my mother and father by the time I was age 10. Father car accident, mother cancer. My mentors were my tios, who were World War II vets, World War II Korea. But my high school baseball coach was a Marine in Korea. My high school football coach was a Marine in Vietnam. Those are guys that really helped shape me. And when I was listening to your story of, you had a positive role model, male, obviously, your father, that would take care of business and help steer you the right way, in the right direction. And that's why I believe when we do these type of interviews, if we could touch one person, you touch one person and that person becomes like a tree that branches out that seed and could touch many other lives.
Yeah.
When you finally decided, how did you decide? Well, you decided the Marine Corps because these guys were Marines that you were around with. Is that right?
Well, absolutely. There was never a doubt in my mind. It wasn't, I wasn't going. My dad wanted me to join the Navy, and that wasn't happening. Nothing against my Navy brethren. I love all the branches. I have immense amount of respect for every branch, but I just knew I wanted to be a Marine. That was it. So there was no question. My teacher, as I was telling you, they were Marines. Their dad was a World War II 90-day wonder, and you hear those stories too. And I'm like, nope, I'll be a United States Marine.
Any stories, anything you want to share with us? Life as a boot Marine, getting out of boot camp, going. I'm not sure if my son refers to going to the fleet. When you go to tank school, any of those early days of someone that may have touched you, maybe saw something special in you and helped guide you along the way. I heard you mention someone, a guy, he was a sergeant major Cadero.
No, that was Master Gunnery Sergeant Frank Cordero. Tank Cordero, great man. We stay in touch. Tankers stay in, everybody, a lot of Marines do, but tankers, we're a special group, very small group of Marines, and we're not making any more tankers. So Frank and many others of us stay in touch, but he was a great mentor to me. Not so much when I was new in the Corps. When I was new in the Corps, I'll talk about Frank in a minute, but you asked me the first part of the question, were there people that helped mentor me? Absolutely. Absolutely. When you get to the fleet, you're a boot. You don't know what the heck you're doing. I have no clue. I was lost, as they say, lost in the sauce. I didn't know what I was, but there were people that said, and again, I learned this later. Later, when I was a staff sergeant, when I was a gunny, when I was a first sergeant, there's a Master Gunnery Sergeant Graham, who was a gunny when I was a corporal and a boot corporal, because I got promoted relatively quick. And then there was a captain, Jeff Wilkinson. And they later told me, and by the way, First Sergeant JJ became Sergeant Major JJ Carroll. And what they later told me, they shared with me, they said, you know what? As I was moving up the ranks, they said, when you get these young guys, mentor them and hone them. I said, and I'm listening and said, you don't realize this, but when you were young and you were a boot, we saw something in you. So we decided that what we were going to do was we were going to really shape you and teach you and show you how to be a better Marine and a better tanker. I was like, wow, these guys were helping shape my career. And that really stuck with me. And I remember, these guys are, excuse me, I'm not trying to be mean, but they're older than I am. So they're older now, and they're still all alive, and we talk, and they're like, so as I was moving up and I was a first sergeant, sergeant major, I remember as a gunny actually doing that because they had told me that. They had shared with me, you're going to find those guys that are destined to be sergeants majors, master gunnery sergeants, help them along. And I did the same thing. But that's what you need. When you don't know what you're doing, you need people that'll come along and get me wrong. Don't think for 1 minute these mentors were just all, telling me what a great job I did. No, they let me have it when I needed it. When you need to have your butt chewed, they let me know. They let me know when I was off the mark. And that brings me to Frank Cordero, who you talked about. I used to tell a story about Frank, and this is a true story. And for years, I wouldn't say his name. And recently I asked, just use my name in anything. Well, that's why I used it in that interview that you're talking about. But Frank, when I was a staff sergeant, he got on me. He was a master sergeant already. And he got on me and said, what the heck? And what I was doing without thinking about it, I knew my job extremely well, very well. And tankers, we take a lot of pride in knowing that tank. It's a science. Knowing that tank it's our guys on tanks, they are not dummies, that's for sure. I'm going to tell you right now, to be a tanker, our guys are really intelligent, and we all want to be the best. So we're very cocky, and I have no problem saying that. I talk about the 3 C's all the time: cocky, confident, and competent. okay? And I was all three. And I let people know I didn't care. And most tankers don't. We're very good at that. But what I would do is I would make it a point to show a leader that he didn't know as much as I did. And Frank caught me one day, and Frank said, "Hey, come here. What are you doing? Why are you doing that? You don't." And think about what I'm about to tell you right now. He gave me a phrase that stuck with me the rest of my career. And he said, "You don't have to say everything you're thinking." I said, that hit me. And I'm lucky that I was in the middle of my career. I was a staff sergeant. That helped me so much for the rest of my career. And I would often share that with other Marines because, a lot of Marines think, I say whatever's on my mind. No, right. A real man knows how to control what he's saying, when to say it and when not to say it. That doesn't make you a real man because you say whatever is on your mind. As a matter of fact, many times that makes you very immature. So
yes,
people like Frank Cordero, Frank the Tank, we all have nicknames, call signs, and that guy is a good friend to this day. And I always say, we need to continue to mentor and help. And Frank, another good story. I got to tell you about Frank. And I believe and I practice and I share with people, servant leadership is so important, so important. Frank, not knowing, the list wasn't out. Well, it came out when we were in Kuwait. Okay, who was going to get promoted to first sergeant, master sergeant? But so I got selected to first sergeant right before we crossed the border into Iraq in 2003. I got selected. That means you're wearing it yet. So we get up, we take Baghdad, we do all that stuff. Well, we have a big meeting of all the staff NCOs in first and second tanks in Dawania. We get together, and Frank pulls me to the side. Very impressed with this guy. He's always been a good friend. He hands me, brand new, in the package still, first sergeant rank insignia. And I'm not talking just the collar ones. He handed me dress blues. He handed me alphas, different uniforms. Who thinks like that? That was some forward thinking to be a servant leader for one of your Marines. And I was so thankful because look at that servant leader right there. Frank is a great man and a good friend and a great leader.
Sir, did you pick tanks or did tanks pick you? Tell us about that.
Tanks. Yeah, I picked tanks. I as you read it, I wanted to be infantry like most Marines. I got to be infantry. Because I just want to be combat arms. And I went down. I entered the Marine Corps as a reservist because I had the PLC program in mind. My mentors, who I told you, my teachers, they had all went through the PLC program. So they had told me, this is a good program. Go in as a reservist. Then you can come back. You'll finish your college and then go in as an officer. That sounds great. So I went down to MEPS here in San Diego, and infantry would be all the way up by San Francisco. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to take that drive every month. So what else do you guys have? Right here in San Diego, we have a tank. We have 4th Tank Battalion. I wasn't so sure. Brad came down, my principal, and he says, why don't we, he goes, John, call me Johnny. He says, Johnny, why don't you think about tanks? It's awesome MOS. It's combat arms. You'll love it. It's really a good MOS. I said, wow, really? So I read through it. And that sounds like a good deal. I think I like that. So I went in tanks and I picked tanks right there. Back then you picked your MOS. And after boot camp, during boot camp, I was so happy because in most tankers, we do not like to walk, okay? And when I was in boot camp, back when you used to go up north all the time, you did the package up there. Well, a tank, back then it was M60, comes through the gully there, and I see a cooler in the back, and I see beach chairs in the bustle rack. That's my MOS right there. And there's no looking back. Tanks is the way to go. It's awesome. We work hard and we play hard. People often think, well, it's just riding. It's not so true. For every 3 hours, for every 1 hour operation, you have 3 to 4 hours of maintenance. So when everybody comes back and they'll throw a weapon in the Army and clean it up, we have the whole tank to take care of. and we have all the crew serve weapons, all the personal weapons, that takes hours to complete. Often a tank company will come out of the field, say they get back about 2,100, okay? Just say that just for the heck of it. They won't leave there till about 5 or 6 in the morning because they're going to put those tanks to bed, right, filled up, cleaned up, ready to go. Discrepancy list turned in, and they're ready to go the next day. So it's a lot of work.
So, sir, as a tank commander, do you also do all the mechanical work to it? I mean, do you need to master the motor, master everything on that tank?
Hey, our guys that come in, see, everybody starts at the bottom. So you start working on the track, everything, every part of that tank you need to know. My guys, I always told them, let's go deeper. What's in our, because you have to stay within your echelon of maintenance. But sometimes you go a little further. I'm a master gunner, a tank master gunner. That means I know a little bit more about the fire control system, a lot more. But so you train your guys to know more because our mechanics are great, phenomenal. You know, Rick Tirado, if you ever see this, the best maintenance chief I ever had, Master Gunner Sergeant Rick Tirado, awesome. Guys like that are out there. But guess what? They can only do so much, and they can only get to you in a certain time. So it's up to that crew to keep that tank moving all the time. So the more you know, the better. And it's not about never is it about knowing the minimum. You know more than you have to know. So yeah, we start at the bottom, we learn it all up, and you continue to grow, you continue. And kind of your question, do you do it? I don't care what your rank is. When you're gunning and you're still on that tank, you're out there, you're helping. You know I was. You know, do you do every single thing? Absolutely not, because you're doing other things. Platoon sergeant, you're doing all those things. But you get out there, you put your sleeves up, and you get some work done with those Marines as well.
Sir, I'm going to put this picture up. That's you, and then there's El Jefe. Can you tell us about El Jefe?
Okay, now I'll tell the left. The left is my second tour in Iraq. There's an interesting story about that picture, though. El Jefe, I told you when I said Frank the Tank, everybody has a nickname, everybody has a call sign. And some get them for bad reasons because they do something stupid. But most of tankers don't do anything stupid. There's just a few. But most of them have great nicknames, call signs. El Jefe, a Marine, many years ago. Wow, I think I was a staff sergeant. And again, you'll hear his name in a minute. Flied Lice. His name is Rice. But we call him Flied Lice because that movie, Lethal Weapon. But he tells me one day, you know, we should start calling you El Jefe because you're the man around here. And I said, you know what? I like that. And it just caught on. So everybody started El Jefe. And that's my name. And when we got to, probably saw one of the tank pictures. I know they sent you guys pictures. But one of my tank pictures, El Jefe's on the bore evacuator on the gun tube. And that's my Marines. When we get to Kuwait, they said, let's put Gunny's name. We had everybody, once you qualify, you can put a name on your bore evacuator. Yeah, so we do that. We put on my tank, we put El Jefe. We had, in my platoon, we had Got Milk, Got Oil. It's derived from Got Milk, but Got Oil, the Big Payback, and Pale Rider. And all those guys, you know, we know their names. And if you look at a company, you'll see all different interesting names that the crew names their own tank.
Sir, can you real quick, Bobby? Can you share with us that story? Because I saw your videos also. That story where you're walking in and everybody's going, "That's El Jefe," and then they come up to you. So you're El Jefe because they didn't know. Can you share that with us? That's very interesting.
Yeah. What I share is because the question that they asked me in that interview that you guys saw was, you know, how did people get to know you in Iraq? And in Iraq at that time, as I just indicated, the name is on the bore evacuator, and it said El Jefe. But as I'm traversing throughout Baghdad, and we're going on to the cities around it, and all Iraq, people saw the name. And really, all you could see, if you recall, the people that were in Iraq in 2003 for the invasion, General Mattis told us to grow our facial hair. So my mustache was all pretty, you know, we looked, it was all big. It looked pretty nasty. It was belligerent.
Yeah, the Pancho Villa look. The Pancho Villa look.
It looked bad. It looked bad. And so I'm driving around. All I had is black glass. And it's funny because I could see those glasses sitting right here because I'm in my I Love Me room right now. And I could see those same glasses sitting they're in a cabinet. But I would drive around like that, and we're driving around town, and we're just, whatever needed to be destroyed, tankers will destroy it if we call them. So I'd go into meetings, and this particular meeting that I was telling in that story was across from Saddam City. And you're walking in, and people are like, "Hey, El Jefe," and I'm like, it's funny because these are an infantry battalion. It was actually infantry battalion, but across from Saddam City was a cigarette factory. So we had taken that cigarette factory, and First Recon was holding it, and everyone was moving out of there. But Recon and the battalion was there. So we go to this meeting for everybody, and that's what they're saying, Jefe. And I'm like, "Hey, what's up? Like, I don't know you, but it doesn't matter. We're Marines, Semper Fi, right?" And someone pulled me later. "Yeah, we've seen you around. You've helped us. You and your platoon have helped us, and thanks. They thank us." I'm like, "Hey, whatever we can do, you just call. We'll take it out." And that's what they would do. The grunt phone was a big win for us. A lot of people, all of a sudden, you'll be sitting in a city, and all of a sudden you hear a voice that you don't know, because you know your crew very well, and you hear a voice, and it's like, "Hey, hello, hello." They don't know how to use the grunt phone, or hello. You look back over your right shoulder, like you guys know, but you look over your right shoulder because, as a tank commander, that's where the grunt phone is. You look over, and there's probably some gunny, some corporal, somebody, some step, and they're like, "Hey, we need some help. Point me in the right direction. Tell me what's going on." And they'll say, "There's a building over there. They have a sniper. No problem. Let's go take it out." Go take it out. Everybody wins. Everybody knows when tanks show up, somebody's going to die.
Definitely. Go ahead,
Right
Bobby.
on, right on. We jumped a little bit ahead, but what I wanted to go into, where were you on 9/11? Really, because that starts everything as far as you guys are training, getting ready in case, our military is always ready if we need them. You're in that box, break glass in case of emergency. Well, suddenly 9/11 came to our doorstep. Where were you on 9/11?
On 9/11, I was part of the 11th MU. As you indicated earlier, I did two deployments with the 11th MU as a tank platoon sergeant. And as people have told me, I'm the only one that's done that with M1A1. That was interesting. I was very blessed to do that. I was asked to take the second one out less than a year later, so we went out. We were coming back, my platoon. I came back early to be the advance party to get everything ready here. So I was sitting in 29 Palms when that happened. My platoon was coming back, and there was questions whether us that came in advance, were going to fly back to the ship, and the ship was going to turn around, but that didn't happen. The ship came in, offloaded. We got back to our battalion, and as you know, that was 2001. Not until 2 years later did we actually go over to Iraq.
Yeah,
Sir, during President George Bush Sr., I believe we invaded Iraq, and then we came back. We stopped short of a fully invasion. Were you part of that deployment too, sir? I believe it was like a 91, 92.
That was Desert Storm. I was not. I was actually a drill instructor at the time. Very upset because that was a big tank battles and a big tank war. And no, I wasn't there. I was making recruits, making Marines actually.
Wow, interesting. Go ahead, Bobby.
Your first deployment. Once you guys come back, you went back to 29 Palms, refit, get ready to head back. When was your first deployment? I know I have the dates. Reflections on your first deployment, and how you're down in a leadership position. How is it taking some of these kids? I've heard your interviews, like my 18, 19-year-old kids, taking them into combat to face harm's way for our country. Reflections.
Well, let me rephrase a little bit. That was my first combat deployment in 2003. Okay, my first deployment, because your listeners or your viewers will think there's several other deployments leading up to that. My first combat deployment was in 2003 when we invaded Iraq. Okay, when we came back, or as you're saying, leading Marines. Now, I'm gonna share with you a little tidbit that I was taught as a very young Marine, as a young corporal. Vietnam and Korean veteran, Army guy, Command Sergeant Major, retired. Alex Borden, awesome, phenomenal Marine soldier. I'm on recruiter's aid down in National City in 1985. And I'm saying something silly at the time, which I didn't understand. And I'm saying, my boys, the kids, talking about the Lance Corporals, the PFCs, because I was a big Lance Corporal. And he looks at me and he stops me dead in my tracks with that 1,000-meter stare. And he says, Johnny, don't you ever call them boys or kids. They're United States Marines. I've been in combat with Marines, even though I'm a soldier. And he says, they are Marines. They are men. Don't ever call them kids or boys. If you want them to act that way, call them that. Wow. That taught me something very good as a young Marine, because from then on, I never called them kids or boys. A lot of people do, and no, I don't mean anything bad against that, but something that a combat veteran taught me, and I was like, wow, I'll never do that then. And, call them by their rank, call them men, because they are men, willing to die if needed for their country. So, those young men, those young warriors that I took to combat, I'm so proud of all of them. I'm so proud. As I often tell people, I am blessed. I have been able to walk amongst heroes. And I'm not talking about myself, please. This isn't what I'm saying. I'm not saying I'm a hero. I'm certainly not. I'm saying the men that I've been around, I'm blessed just to have been in the presence of other men, other Marines who are heroes. And those, it doesn't matter their age, because I've seen some young men, some young Marines do some heroic things, very heroic. So I'm very proud of them. Any time I get a chance to boast about them, I will. There's so many stories I could tell you about seeing young men do some things in combat that you're like, wow. In that interview that you're talking about, I told a story about a young man named Chris Diaz. His mother texted me and said, Sergeant Major, I never heard that story before. I hope I didn't get him in trouble, but she said, thank you for sharing that story of my son, because I never, Chris didn't talk about it, I guess, when he got home, and that's fine. But I'm glad she knows how heroic her son conducted himself in combat.
Sir,
you want to share
before
that story?
Bobby has, I was going to ask you, can you share the story with us, sir?
Yeah. I'll tell you the story of Diaz. What happens, okay, just so you know, there's 4 tanks, 1, 2, 3, and 4. The 1 and the 4 are everyone's a leader, okay? What I'm saying is that's the platoon sergeant and the platoon commander. The 4 was my tank. The 1 was the platoon commander's tank. The 2 is the platoon commander's wingman. The 3 is my wingman. I have Machine Gun Miller as my wingman. I told you, everybody has nicknames, almost everybody. Machine Gun Miller is on my left. We're on the road, basically. We're cut by the road. We're fighting over here. We are in some serious combat. He's fighting his sector. I'm fighting my sector. But the rest of the platoon is fighting their sector. Everybody's fully engaged, and we're just going at it. Well, what happens quite often, if somebody has to reload their 50, you have to expose yourself to reload your 50. So, being the good staff sergeant that Machine Gun Miller is, he calls me and says, Jefe, I need to reload. My 50's my 50's out. Roger, hold on, because typically what I'm going to do is I'm going to swing around, make sure he's covered with my fire so that he can reload. Give me a second. I'm engaging right now. Let me finish my engagement. I'm not telling him all this. I'm just telling you. Bam, I'm fine. And I'm getting ready to come around with it. And I said, hold on. And we get ready to back out to move around. And I look through my vision block. I'm sorry, I'm acting like you guys know, but there's vision blocks in the tank, because I'm down fighting the tank from within, inside with a 50 cal. I look through the vision block to my left, and I see Diaz jump on the tank, on top of the tank with the 9mm. So he's fighting off the enemy with the 9mm so that Machine Gun Miller can jump up and reload the 50. That happens very quickly. Machine Gun Miller loads the 50. Diaz is back in the tank, and Machine Gun Miller tells me, hey, I'm good. I'm reloaded. And I hear the report of his 50 firing. and it's happened, instantaneously. And I'm like, wow, awesome. That's just one example. That's the one example of what these young Marines do. I mean, and you can talk to other Marine leaders, and they'll tell you several stories of Marines doing things like that. Just out there. Why? Because they know the job needs to get done, and because they love their brother next to them. It's all about that Marine next to you. And he was taking care of his tank commander. So, yeah, that's Diaz. That's the story of Diaz. I kind of condensed it.
Sergeant Major, before Bobby's next question, we have a question from our producer, Benny Cruz. He's saying, what is life like inside a tank, and how many men per tank?
Yeah, very good question. And again, I apologize because sometimes I talk like everybody knows. Some of you have seen Fury, and you think there's 5. There's 4 people in an M1A1. One thing I'll tell you, if you ever see the movie Fury, one thing it really depicts, in my opinion, is how close a tank crew gets. You get extremely close, not only with your platoon, but especially with that crew. You know everything about everybody. Everybody knows everything about you. Just if somebody's having a bad day, because you're so close. And it is very confined. I'm not a big man, but it is very tight. You're tight quarters. When you put all your guards up, you're shoved in there with all your gear. It's very tight quarters. It's not for somebody that is claustrophobic. But I don't think it's just small guys. I know great Marines. I see a picture of a great Marine named Mike Mummy. Mike Mummy is 6'5".
Wow.
He's not a little man. He was in and out of the tank, and a great Marine and a great tanker, by the way. So yeah, it's not about you have to be small. It's just you make it work. But there's not a lot of room. You make it work. I hope that answered your producer's question.
Yes. Go ahead, Bobby.
Yeah, my old partner in gang squad did time in the Army and was a tank crewman. And I like to think back, my Tio Jose, my mom's brother, was in Patton's army in the battles of Northern Africa. He fought in those and later was in Bulge. So he was a little guy. To me, he was big. And once I grew up, I couldn't believe how small he was. But he was a tough man. He was one of my mentors.
Nobody in tanks can be really small because, I'm not talking about height. I'm talking about everything's heavy on that tank. Everything. So when you're pulling equipment, when you're working it, you have to be able to lift that stuff. It's very heavy. Everything.
Yes.
Track, you're talking breech block, you're talking anything is heavy. Row wheels. And we don't say, oh, let somebody else do it. Figure it out. Everybody, you better get to the gym if you can't lift it. So, yeah.
Now, my next question, leadership in combat. Any type of thoughts that come to mind? What makes a good leader? And obviously, it doesn't just start when you get to your deployment. It has to start way before. But what would be your advice? Leadership, I'm sure, that could be used not only in the military, but in life in general, in mentoring and leading men.
You know what, Bobby? I think he, let me see. It looks like he blacked out. He should be coming back on. Let me go ahead and remove this right here. And we'll go back to this. Yeah, it looks like he blacked out. He should be coming on shortly. All right, let Rachel Levin do it. Man, what outstanding, huh, Bobby? Listening to how the tight quarters. How did that guy, 6'5", get in? Jesus, and then we got Gordo Gordito, who's getting ready to retire after 25 years of working Chicago PD, one of the, most violent cities in America. He says he'd pass out from claustrophobia.
He mentioned that the nicknames they get from regular nicknames or something stupid they do. I mentioned my son-in-law is a F-35 fighter pilot. Since you're off, I was talking about. Yes, we can hear you. The nicknames. Since you were off, the nicknames. My son-in-law is a F-35 fighter pilot in the Air Force. His nickname or call sign is Ditch because when he was at the Air Force Academy, he was hauling ass down some wet road and didn't stop in time to make the turn on the left, and he ran into a ditch. So that's his call sign to this day, ditch.
Wow.
But you can hear us, right?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Can you hear us? Okay. All right. My next question is I talked about leadership in combat. What do you think makes a great leader? What makes a leader? We look at, I would listen to some of the stories you told, and I was just amazed. I got so much respect for our military. And what makes a great leader in combat? Especially, you guys saw a lot.
Go ahead. I'll let you. I'm sorry. Give me
real quick. My son, I told you, my son did Afghanistan, Operation Red Wings, Afghanistan. Mm-hmm. He was in Fallujah, the mop-up of Fallujah. He looks up to his leaders, his master gunnies and these guys. He looks at those guys like gods. He says, because I would follow them to hell and back. That's what he says about some of these guys. So obviously he was fortunate to have some good leaders. What is you think is a key to great leadership, good leadership in combat?
I think the biggest thing in combat is that what I indicated earlier was servant leadership. The Marines or the people, whatever branch or wherever when you're in combat, people need to know that you're there for them. Not just as lip service and say, oh, I got your back. No, they need to see it and know it. There's an old saying that most will attribute to Theodore Roosevelt. Nobody cares what you know until they know that you care. That's profound when you think about it. Marines just want to know that you care. When they know that you care about them, really care about them, they'll do anything for you. Anything. And part of that is not giving up on Marines, not giving up on your subordinates, not giving up, being able to tell seniors, that's wrong. We're not doing it. Having the moral courage, not just being a yes man. All those things are very important as a leader. Again, not back to the point of not just saying it to be abrasive, but if you know something's going to go south, it's your obligation as a leader to say, we're not going to do it that way. That's not the way to do it. And this is why. If you don't give a solution, as I have always told Marines for several years, if you don't have a solution for the problem, you're just complaining. Don't complain. Give me a solution.
Absolutely. Yes.
So in combat, Marines want to know that they're going to be taken care of. And see, we as leaders, what I often have shared with people, we have a phenomenal and a really huge responsibility. You see, America says, I'm going to lend you my son and daughters now. I'm going to lend them to you. We know that they may come back hurt. They may not even come back. But just treat them with respect, dignity, and teach them, train them hard so they can stay alive. And when you're training for the right reasons, you bring up Patton. Patton, you hear all stories about him and the ridings him. He was a tough guy, and he believed in training. And a lot of Marines believe in training. Train so that you can stay alive. Don't wait until it's combat time. Combat time is not the time. You had to already be prepared before that. So a lot of the guys that I mentioned to you earlier, Mummy, Cordero, Graham, several of these leaders that have been an influence to my career, those guys were tough. They were telling, let's train now. They taught me when I was younger. Train them now so that they'll be able to survive in combat. That's what leaders do. They look out for their Marines. They look. It's not just in the Marine Corps. You said we look out for Marines and we look out for their welfare. It's not just something you say. You actually do it. You know the Marine. You take care of them by knowing them and looking out for them.
Sir, we're definitely bringing you back to have just a whole hour episode on leadership. Because we have a lot of sergeants, or what we just saw Captain Manny watching the show right now. I mean, we have a lot of leaders in police departments, federal agencies watching the show. So we're definitely bringing you back just to talk about the different styles of leadership.
I could talk
That is
about
a
leadership
wonderful
all
subject.
day. It's one of the things that I love that I often just talk about is leadership because there's so many facets of it. But,
Yes.
And there's no really, you can say, well, this is the only way. That's not true. There's several ways that work, but what's going to work for you? You as an individual cannot change who you are, or you shouldn't. Otherwise, you're a chameleon. You have to, now, let me watch that, because somebody told me once, and this is I used to share with Marines, and I want you guys to think about this. Is there somebody, I used to ask my staff, non-commissioned officers, is there somebody in this world that wants to be like you? Is there somebody in this world that says, I'm going to work tomorrow and I'm excited because so-and-so is there? If there's not, that's a problem.
Yes.
Somebody should say, you know what? That's the type of leader, that's the type of man, that's the type of person I want to be. At least one, if not more. If there's not one, then guess what? We do have time to change and regroup and adjust ourselves. Not change our personality, but maybe a tweak here and there, right? But when we do that, we become better leaders. That's the reason behind it, to become leaders to our full potential. When we do that, we can lead people anywhere. And I believe, and I'm glad you'll bring me back for leadership, because leadership, in my never humble opinion, is 99.9% in all parts of life.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
People will try to argue with me about that. And I said, well, I don't lead anybody. You have a family? Yes, you're leading your family. You have a child? Yes, you're leading your child. You have coworkers. Somebody's in charge. So leadership is extremely important. So yeah, anytime. You guys let me know. You guys know how to reach me now.
Definitely. Go ahead, Bobby. I think we have two more questions.
Okay. I'm on your
also, one of the things you mentioned that right now you're talking about leadership. I hear people sometimes say, well, I'm not a supervisor. I don't have rank. You know what? Somebody's looking at you. Maybe one of the younger guys as a cop. You could be just another police officer, a detective, but you're not supervisory. Somebody younger may be looking at you. You are leading by example, because they're watching you. And that's one thing I used to drive me crazy when people say that. One of the things you said, it was very profound, that you say, America, I'm giving you my son, my daughter. And when you say that, I think of it. I grew up, there was a girl that grew up in my neighborhood. She was older than me. I didn't realize she married a Phoenix police officer, a longtime SWAT guy with Phoenix. Her son, Corporal Christopher Lapka, joined the Marine Corps on 9/11, just like my son. And Christopher Lapka, they were over at Anbar, a VBID. A car bomb ran into a truck they were in, and he was one of 8 Marines killed in one blast in 2004. And I think it was yesterday or 2 days ago was 03/11 Day. Day of Infantry for the Marine Corps, and every day she posts photos of all these Marines that go visit her that were friends of her son, and she said, "These are now my sons." And but that's what America does. We hand off our kids, our young men, our young women, to the service, to the Marine Corps, to the other services. And when you say that, it's like, yeah, they need to be watched, and good leadership will do that. David?
Yeah.
Sir, can tell us about PTSD. The San Diego Police Department, the police departments in general, nationwide, they train you to be a police officer. You have to go through a police academy every 2 years. During your career, you have to go to advanced officer training, and you get criminal laws, civil law training, CPR. You have to requalify every 2 years. But throughout your career, you get all this updated training, but they never, not once, trained us to be civilians again. Never trained us. And I understand that right now the military does have programs where they're starting to prepare the infantrymen, our military for the civilian life. What advice do you give to those police officers that have no training at all to be civilians again, who today, including myself and Bobby, suffer from PTSD, from our career in law enforcement? what advice do you give us? What advice do you give that Marine that is no longer Marine? He is now a civilian that is suffering from PTSD today, sir?
I would say hold on to your brothers. Okay. Now I'm not politically correct, but let me quantify that statement. Marine Corps was saying gender neutral terms long before it was cool. Okay. So when I say Marines, I don't always say, I say my brothers, that's inclusive. Okay. Because we have women in combat as well, or in Marines now also. So I just want to be clear when I say, hold on to your brothers. Okay. Hold on to your brothers, because guess what? I'm sitting here telling you that I still talk to these guys. These guys still talk to me. Up the ranks, lower ranks, higher ranks, we call each other, we talk to you. That is important, because you may not be in uniform anymore, but you still hold on to your friends. Your friends are there, I would hope for you, but I found that they are there. I've had Marines call me drunk, going through some stuff, and we talk it out, and I say, okay, can we talk tomorrow? I don't like to talk to drunks. Can we talk tomorrow? If it's an emergency, we just keep talking. But sometimes you just want to listen to somebody. They want somebody, and you guys know this, especially people that you serve with in those hairy situations. Those, you can't change that. Those people, you have a different bond with them. So those people, stay close to them, because there's not 100% training. There's not going to be training that says this is how you do PTSD. We're becoming better, but I don't know that we'll ever be 100%. We'll ever solve the issue. I think we have a lot of work to do, with our VA and everything. But with those police officers that you're talking about, I think hold on to that tight-knit groups that they have. And I know I know a lot of police officers are friends of mine, and you guys hold on very tight. And I think that's very admirable, and you guys should hold on and talk to each other.
Thank you, sir. And Bobby, I think you have the last question. Go ahead.
Last question. We will have you back, because we really want to listen to your leadership, thoughts, philosophy, and everything else. But what are you doing right now? What is Sergeant Major, retired Sergeant Major?
So right now I'm interviewing you with you guys.
Yes. What is life like right now for you?
Hey, you know what? I'm enjoying my retirement right now. I stay involved in the community a lot. I do a lot of speaking engagements. I'll do these things when my people will call me and tell me, hey, son and such would like to do a podcast. Are you interested? They'll tell me what it's about. And, most of the time I try to get to yes, but sometimes no, but like something like this, absolutely. Veterans, police officers, first responders, I'm absolutely going to talk to them. So anything I do, and I back to what I was saying, it's about service. I'm here to serve. So if I can help others through telling them, how it was for me to come up, or, how I served in the military, it's worth it. So I'm about helping others.
And sir, I agree with Robert Guzman. Like I said, if you get a chance, Google him. He is a dynamic preacher. Says, Johnny, time to run for governor of California. It's the right time to get real leadership. I understand you ran for the 51st district against Juan Vargas. I know Juan very well when I was a police officer. Have you considered throwing your hat in the governor's race? Has anybody talked to you about it, including our president, Donald Trump?
People have talked to me about it, but I haven't considered it seriously. I'm very honored. It's very flattering. I get a lot of calls about running for certain offices. Why don't you consider this? Why don't you consider that? And like I said, it's flattering, and I'm very honored for those calls. But we'll see. And what I do is, this may sound odd to some, but what I always say is, if it's the Lord's will, I will. I'm here to serve, but I'm going to pray about it and see where the Lord wants me. I know that there is going to be something else. I will serve in another capacity, because I'm still relatively young. There's still a lot of gas in the tank. And I still have a lot to offer and to serve my country, and in whatever capacity the Lord shows me.
Sir, are you Johnny Wilkerson in your neighborhood today? Do you talk to the kids and tell them stories the way that old gentleman
I see what you're saying.
used to sit down and talk to you? Are you influencing kids other than on different podcasts? But are you that man that sits in front and talks to the children in your neighborhood?
Well, nobody does that anymore because you don't want to be a creeper, right? But
Yeah,
yeah, you're not going to talk to little kids. But,
exactly. Yeah.
I'm very fortunate that a lot of Marines and a lot of young people will see me somewhere and they'll ask me questions. And like I said, my team will put me in, hey, they would like to talk about, and I do. I love to influence in that way because I want to share with people. You can be better, especially those that are coming from areas that we grew up in. You can make it. There's an old saying, well, actually Confucius said it, the man that says he can't and the man that says he can't are both correct. You can do it. Your listeners, if you have young people that are watching now, you can get out of that environment. It's up to you. Yes, there's some struggles, but you can do it. There's a bunch of people. I know all the viewers you said, look at the list of those mentors right there that
Yes.
I'm sure will be willing to say, hey, young man, or you want some help? Yeah, and we'll help mentor you along. I certainly will. But yes, to an extent, I do that as much as I can. When people ask you, I love to, you don't want to talk to a sergeant major and ask them to give you a story because we can go on and on.
Sir, I follow you. I have a boxing podcast. It's called Los Tres Chingones Boxing Podcast. And I follow you through my boxing podcast. And I saw you, I believe it was this Saturday, you spoke. You're a preacher also. You spoke on the Sabbath. Has God called you to be a pastor yet, sir?
Yeah. You know what? I preach a lot, and I do love public speaking.
Yeah.
I do a lot of public speaking, but especially when somebody asks me to preach, my pastors ask me to preach. They'll call me and say, hey, "Can you preach?" Absolutely, and I find a way. The people that you guys have been talking to, they find a way to get yes. I always tell them, get me to yes, if we can, if the schedule will not conflict. And this, I found out the Sunday before, and I'm in. So I have a few days to create a sermon and to memorize a sermon and then present it. So I'm blessed. I am very blessed that the Lord has given me that ability and the honor to do that. So yes, I do preach on occasion. And
sir, do we see a future pastor? Has God called you for a pastorship yet, sir?
I don't think that's in the, I've served as an elder and I've served in the church for many years, but I don't know. Again, not my will, but his will. So I never say no, whatever he'll have me do.
Brother, thank you, man. What a blessing it was to have you here. You're not only our brother in arms, but you're our brother in Christ. We could see it. We could feel it. Thank you. You're definitely coming back. We'll get back to you. Bobby has your number. We'll get back to you for April. We want to have a whole segment on leadership. Bobby, any last words for our Sergeant Major?
Very inspirational. And, one of the things I like telling our viewers have heard me say this. I know that I didn't know at the time my calling was to become a police officer. And then later, 10 years outside the country, serving my community as a police officer. And I have no doubt that God grabbed me and led me in that direction. I have no doubt in my mind that is what God chose me to do in my life. And it's a great feeling to know I love the work I did. And I love knowing that God chose me to do this type of work. But thank you for joining us. We look forward to having you again soon. God bless.
Do you mind if I? Oh, okay, we're done.
No. Go ahead, sir. Go ahead, sir.
I just wanted to tell you. I wanted to close my part with telling you a quick story about the intangibles and because your viewers are listening and you heard about combat a little bit, you heard about leadership a little bit, but it's about whatever leader who's out there and trying to lead. It's about those people that you work for. It's not about you anymore. It's about them. And it's not about medals. It's not about money. As Colonel Jessup says in the movie, A Few Good Men, right? It's about those people that we serve. One of the stories that I often tell, and I was able to tell with the father present, I was speaking at a Marine Corps ball this last year. And as I told you, in 2003 when we went, I'm a nice guy, but I can be a real when I have to be. Okay, you got to be. You have to be able to give a good swift kick in the butt as quick and with equal enthusiasm as a pat on the back. And a father comes to me as soon as we get back, and we get on the grinder, as most Marines are listening will know, when you get off the buses and you're coming back from combat. And a father runs up to me and very kind of aggressive, and he says, "Are you Gunnery Sergeant Hidalgo?" And I got to tell you, tankers we're very cocky, and we're just, we're sarcastic. And he says, "Are you Gunnery Son Hidalgo?" And I said, "Yeah, what gave it away? The name tapes, because it says Hidalgo on my name." And he says, he goes, "Yeah, are you, my son said that you were his platoon sergeant." "Yeah, I guess so. I guess you got the right guy." He says, "Well, he says that you're a real a-hole, but you're tough and you're fair." And I said, "You definitely have the right guy." And he says, this man puts his hand out to me, and with tears in his eyes. I'm not belittling him. That I actually have a lot of respect for him. He just hands me his hand, gives me his hand, and says, "Thank you." And I said, "Thank you for bringing my son home."
Wow.
I'm telling you that because that's what it's about. That was worth more than any medal they could give me.
Yeah.
A parent, because I was telling you that our job is to bring them home. That isn't always the case because the enemy has a vote. But guess what? When we can, and those parents see that we took care of their kids, even though we were tough on them. Those young men, those young Marines, their parents still call them kids. It's worth it. It's worth it to bring them all home and make sure they're home. Train them hard. Be that leader that you can be. Everything else is a piece of cake.
Brother, once again, man, mil gracias. Thank you very much. Prayers for you, and we'll have you. Hopefully, we're looking forward in April. God bless you, brother. Thank you.
God bless you.
God bless you.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Man, Bobby, talking about leadership, huh? And you know what's the most beautiful thing? I mean, he's one of us. I mean, he grew up in National City. I know National City like the palm of my hand. I grew up in Chula Vista. Jim, I'm with you, man. Outstanding episode, brother. Awesome. Amazing. Man, Bobby, what did you think?
Well, what he says, what he said right now, my son went off to 2 combat deployments, worried, sick, but you just got to, trust the process, trust the author. And I knew my son was in God's hands. He had mentioned that the one young Marine's mother said, "I never heard that story. I took my son on a cross-country trip when he moved to Miami at one time, and we stopped and we were meeting Marines along the way to have dinner with them. And I heard stories some of his Marines say about my son, dangerous stuff that they were involved in that he had never told me." So like what he says right now, to all his leadership, thank you for bringing my son back. And he's living a healthy, normal life, being a father to his 3 kids now. So praise God.
That is beautiful. And guys, next Tuesday on on the gray line, the story behind the blue line, we have Fernando Puente from El Bordo. Guys, it's going to be, I know he was with us on our episode. He talked a lot about the women that are being killed right now as we speak in Tijuana. Talked about some of the cartels. He's coming back to Ash Wednesday to finish talking about the Arellano Felix cartel and the Sinaloa cartel, what's happening in Tijuana. But next Tuesday, he's going to be, like I said, at 6 o'clock on the gray line. He's going to be talking about literally El Bordo. And guys, it is going to be a dynamic episode. And guys, and before I forget, we also have next Wednesday, we have Benny Cruz, our producer. The guy was a detective with the San Diego Sheriffs for 42 years. The guy handled some cases. I mean, you talk to Benny Cruz, you could talk for hours, and he's still not finished telling you the great, amazing stories that where he was involved as a detective. Next week, he's going to be talking about 2 cases. One is a case of bank robbery suspects where a pregnant woman got into a shootout with Fontana PD. He's going to take us blow by blow what happened on that shooting, and he's also going to talk to us on a special case that he handled where I believe there was over 100 cases against this child molester with his family and the neighborhood kids. So next week, Benny Cruz is going to join us, and he'll be drinking his famous moonshine. So we're going to have him on for a couple of hours. But guys, before I forget, next, if you're in Chula Vista, San Diego, San Isidro, or throughout Southern California, if you're ever in Chula Vista, La Central Birria, located at 1290 Hollister Street, they have, I'm not exaggerating, probably the best birria in Southern California. If you go and you don't like it, send me your check, not your party's check. Send me your check and I will pay for your meal. I guarantee you, you're going to love their birria. You're going to love their homemade tortillas. And above and beyond, you're going to love their menudo. But it's owned by a former retired San Diego Police Department Detective Sergeant, Oscar Armenta. He's the owner of this, him and his partner. And I'm telling you, best birria in the world. If you're in Chula Vista, San Diego, La Central Birriera. And don't be surprised when you're there if you see a lot of local judges, a lot of judges from the Superior Municipal Court are always there. Not only judges, a lot of police officers. You know it's a good place when you have the cops eating there. So yeah, get a chance to go by. Bobby, with that said, brother, any last words for our listeners?
No, thanks for joining us. And a Cocaine Cowboy.
Yeah, he's here, man. All the way from the Philippines, watching us live, brother.
A shout out to me. Yesterday was 20 years that I retired from Phoenix PD.
Wow, Bobby, 20 years, man.
Yeah. Everyone might thinking, how can I be that old? But everyone thinking, how can I be that old? But I lied about my age when I joined the PD. I was 8 years old. It was scary, super scary when I first started.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's it. See you guys all next week.
See you next week. And like Bobby, I'm going to use Bobby's favorite quote, and quote which came from his son. Trust the process, no matter what you're going through. You know what? No matter what our country's going through. And you know what? Sometimes we're watching the news. That's why I have a hard time watching the news today, because every time you hear the stock market, you hear tariffs, you hear so many things. Trust the process, but above and beyond, trust the author. And you know what? Our author is Jesus Christ. Trust our author, Jesus Christ, and I guarantee you, no matter what the world's going through, no matter what's going on in the government, whatever matter what's going on in Russia, Ukraine, all over the world, trust the process, but trust our author, Jesus Christ, and you're going to have peace of mind. With that said, we'll see you next Wednesday, and we'll see you next Tuesday. God bless you.
Used to spend my nights out in the ballroom. Liquor was the only love I'd known. But you rescued me from reaching for the bottom and brought me back. Far gone. You're as smooth as Tennessee whiskey.